All right, let's dive into one of the most pivotal, most debated events in all of Islamic history. It's a story that really hinges on the meaning of a single, absolutely crucial word.
And it all kind of kicks off with this famous declaration, known as the Hadith of the Two Treasures. It was delivered by the Prophet Muhammad, and it really sets the stage for a truly momentous announcement that was about to follow, one whose interpretation would literally echo through centuries.
So let's set the scene, shall we? The story begins when a massive, sprawling caravan is unexpectedly halted right in the middle of its journey. So picture this. It's the year 632 CE. The Prophet is on his way back from his final pilgrimage, and then suddenly he orders the entire caravan, we're talking tens of thousands of people, to stop, dead in their tracks. And the location? Well, it's just bizarre. Ghadir Khumm, the Pool of Khumm, was this inhospitable place, known for its brutal climate and a pond with salty, undrinkable water. Nobody stopped here. This wasn't a rest stop, so this incredibly unlikely setting just screams that the message he was about to deliver was urgent and important. Okay, so this brings us to the declaration itself. This is the absolute heart of the matter. Standing on a makeshift pulpit made of saddles, he starts with a question. He's referencing a verse in the Qur'an here, really establishing his spiritual authority. He asks, "Am I not Allah?" meaning closer or having more authority over the believers than they are to themselves? And the crowd just roars back, "Yes!" It's in that moment that he takes his cousin and son-in-law, Ali ibn Abi Talib, by the hand, raises it high for every single person to see, and makes his declaration. "Men kuntu mawalahu fahada aliyin mawalahu." Whoever's Mawla I am, this Ali is also his Mawla. That's it. That's the sentence. That's the moment. And believe it or not, the entire historical split that follows, it all comes down to how you interpret that one single Arabic word, Mawla.
So what does Mawla actually mean? Well, that is the billion-person question, isn't it? It's what's called a polysemous word, which is a fancy way of saying it has a whole bunch of potential meanings, and it all depends on the context. It can mean master or leader, but it can just as easily mean friend or patron or protector. And that ambiguity, right there, is the very fulcrum upon which history turned.
And from that one word, two great paths emerged, a fork in the road. Was the Prophet appointing Ali as his successor, his master and leader? Or was he just publicly affirming Ali's high status as a beloved friend and protector? These two interpretations would lead to two completely different futures. So let's explore that first path, the one that follows the Shia interpretation, that what happened at Ghadir Khumm was nothing less than a clear, explicit appointment of a successor. So, if you're looking at this from the Shia perspective, the Quran itself basically frames the whole event. They believe a verse was revealed right before the sermon, telling the Prophet to deliver a message he was worried might cause division, but promising God's protection. Then right after the sermon, another verse comes down declaring, "This day have I perfected for you your religion." For them, this sequence is proof. It was a divinely ordered transfer of both religious and political authority, or Wilaya, directly to Ali. And you know, the contextual argument here is pretty powerful. You have to ask, why would you halt a massive caravan in such a miserable, uncomfortable spot, make people who are already exhausted wait for hours in the scorching sun, just to say, "Hey everyone, just so you know, Ali's my buddy"? The sheer drama of the setting, they argue, implies a message that was way, way more significant than a simple show of affection. Okay, so now let's back up and walk down that other path, the one that offers a very different context for what the Prophet said that day. The Sunni view kind of rewinds the tape a little bit, connecting the sermon to something that happened just before the pilgrimage. See, Ali had just led a military campaign in Yemen, and some of his soldiers were grumbling about how strictly he handled the spoils of war. From this perspective, the Prophet's big sermon at Ghadir wasn't out of the blue. It was a direct response to this grumbling in the ranks, a public defense of Ali meant to reaffirm his high status and shut down any discontent. So in this light, when the Prophet uses the word Mawla, he's not talking about being a master in a political sense. He means it in the sense of friendship and support. He was essentially telling his followers that Ali was his trusted friend and protector, his wali, and that they needed to treat him with that same high level of respect. It was a statement of esteem, not a transfer of power. So here's the kicker. This single event, interpreted in two profoundly different ways, ended up creating two completely distinct models of leadership that have defined the two largest branches of Islam for, well, over 1,400 years. On one side, the Shia interpretation gives rise to the Imamate. This is the idea that leadership is a divinely appointed office passed down through the Prophet's family, starting, of course, with Ali. On the other side, the Sunni interpretation supports the caliphate, where the leader is chosen by the community through consensus or designation, with the very first caliph being Abu Bakr. You can see how these are two totally different foundations for Islamic governance, and both trace their origins right back to that day at Ghadir Khumm. What's also fascinating is how the event was even recorded in the first place. Some of the most influential early Sunni historians, like the famous al-Tabari, barely mention Ghadir Khumm at all. Now, some modern scholars suggest this might have been on purpose, maybe to avoid upsetting their Sunni patrons, or simply because the event was seen as giving too much support to Shia claims. For example, al-Tabari talks about the complaints from that Yemen campaign right where the Ghadir sermon should be, which some scholars see as a deliberate substitution. And this isn't just something in dusty old books. The memory of that day is very, very much alive. For millions of Shia Muslims, the 18th day of the Islamic month of Zu al-Hijjah is a huge holiday, Eid al-Ghadir, the festival of the pool. It's a day of celebration, a day they reaffirm their belief that this was the moment Ali was officially designated as the Prophet's successor. So we're left with this incredible picture. One prophet, one caravan, one sermon in a scorching hot valley, and one word, Mawla, that became a monumental fork in the road of history, leading to two distinct paths that have been traveled by billions of people ever since. It really makes you wonder, how can the interpretation of a single word carry so much weight that it shapes civilizations, politics, and the faith of nearly a quarter of the world's population?